What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involved in the markets, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin to devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon in just about 3 weeks. Anyways, for NIO, let's break down what's happening to the chart. NIO's on a bit of a downtrend right here as we approach the $6 area. Came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high. And we're still somewhat downtrending right now as we have this nice little inverse cup and handle like structure. And there's a nice imbalance to fill at least down below. So we'll be watching to see how this ends up moving. We have this 5.05 area as our key support. So we'll have to see how things end up progressing from here. Looking at resistance, we have this 5.35 area, and we'll have to see what happens from here as well. But like I said before, the chart is still on a downtrend, and there are other things that could end up affecting the way this ends up moving. But I first want to talk about some data. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Friday, May 10th, 2024. We have Bowman from the Fed giving a speech at 9 o'clock a.m. Then we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, the 5-year inflationary expectations, and more data like that coming out at 10 a.m. Besides that, it's just a couple more Fed speakers, and everything else is very, very minor. Now, I just wanted to call out some earnings right over here. We just had Marathon, SoundHound, and a few others that just came out. Marathon is actually a little bit down right now, despite the fact that its revenues increased about 223%. Net income also increased, and we actually saw some nice growth. Despite that, when it comes to their first quarter financials, things are looking pretty decent, nice increases here and there. And when it comes to guidance, it was so overall. So it's not really affecting it as much. But that's what we're seeing, at least for now, moving forward. But nothing too crazy with Marathon. The market is still fearful, getting very close to neutral as we're seeing buyers stepping in again. Greed is making up the current momentum. And we're starting to see the puts and call positioning kind of dipping again as we're seeing more puts being closed and more call buying than before. It's kind of balanced right now. The VIX is at neutral, is actually continuing to fall. We're at a very, very low level in the 13 area. And we're approaching the 12, the critical support zone, which is where the VIX loves to bounce. So I do believe within a week, this thing is going to get another bounce back up, but we have to give this some time just to be safe. So we'll see how this ends up affecting the markets. Besides that, that's all I'm seeing in terms of data. For NIO, we have some big news. NIO has its 500,000th mass-produced vehicle rolling off the production line at the NIO Factory 2. That's the NF2 and Haife. That is great news for them. That's a new milestone for the high, and it's amazing growth in my personal opinion. That was actually for the 2024 ES8 that they launched. So very awesome to see. 500,000 mass-produced vehicles. Amazing feat that they have achieved. So it's actually making a lot of headlines. Let me just show you this first. 500,000 production is very great news for them. Once again, it's in their plant. William Lee Bin also said that they're going to continue their reign, continuing to grow, and they had a very nice ceremony about this. So great growth and great news for them. Let me just note that when it comes to deliveries, they reached 495,000 in total as of April 30th. So they're easily going to crush the 500,000 threshold very soon if they haven't done so already. So we're going to be hitting 500,000 deliveries. Amazing that they produced that many vehicles, and they're getting very close to some staggering growth. So awesome news for NIO. Very awesome. On top of this, NIO signed a new agreement with GAC Group to co-develop battery standards and charging and swaps. I actually went over this in my previous video, so I'm not going to talk as much about this, but this is something worth noting. And finally, NIO is going to be launching its lower price brand Onvo on May 15th. So it's going to be a very big date. We will see what they end up announcing. This is happening as there's been a lot of competition with Tesla and other tickers out there. So that's great news, at least for the company. On top of this, there's price wars that are very competitive. They're continuing to happen right now. Onvo, the L60, is a family-centric smart BEV around 34,000 USD, which is once again the same segment of the Model Y, and they're kind of like entering the sedan business to help compete more with it. So with more affordable cars coming out, this will be a lot more competitive for other industries. This is great for them, and this is going to incentivize more growth, so I'm very excited for this. Volume is at about 34.5 million. That is once again below average. And we also have short volume kind of flat right now at about the 57% mark. On top of this, McGuire has reiterated a neutral rating for the company. We're also starting to see a bit of a change right here as the price-price ratio is flattening. NIO is losing a little bit of strength compared to before. Fridays are historically green about 53% of the time, and we see more volatility at 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and then during the final hour of the day. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Let's now break down the share price. So overall, the trend is a bit more bearish, but NIO is holding 5.25 very well. If we rebound, we're going to be looking for a test of 5.34. And if it breaks this, we could see this thing just continue to shuffle. For the last day, it's been shuffling between 5.4 and 5.25. I think it might continue to shuffle for some time, but then there is going to be a risk of it dipping lower if the market gets a rejection and if it ends up following the trend. So I do think there might be a little dip coming. I still think it's going to be testing this $5 area. It might shuffle a bit first before we end up coming down, but that's all I'm seeing, at least for the time being, for the stock. Now for SPY, this is actually breaking out. It's actually pushing very nicely, very, very bullish looking. And even though it's approaching, the 21.5 area, trying to fill this imbalance, and also approaching the all-time high, I still want to warn you all that the VIX is in a very, very critical place. That does show signs of rejections. The VIX is currently at 12.68, but just know that historically the VIX does have a tendency of bouncing within a few days or within a week once it hits the 12s. So it could take some time, but this thing will eventually get a bounce within the next week or so, in my opinion. And this may be contributing to why the market's going to see downside soon. So for now, yes, the market could push higher. We're still bullish on SPY. I think we're going to go a little higher, but the VIX is telling us that eventually SPY will reject, and we're seeing a lot of signals that suggest that. So could SPY go higher? Yes, it can. It still looks bullish in my opinion. I do expect 21.5 as a target. Could even go higher than that, approaching the all-time high. But even if it reaches this high, it could still reject and fill a lot of these gaps below, because once again, we have tight resistance approaching, not to mention the fact that when it comes to the way the market's moving, the VIX is getting ready for a bigger volatile move. So for now, SPY is more bullish. Just to be clear, if we lose 520, we're bearish. If we break above 521, then we're bullish again. I favor the upside for now, but things could shift later on. Nvidia is kind of rejecting right over here. We're now below our 20 EMA. It might try to retest 900 and try to reject again, come back down to 875. But I'm seeing some signals that suggest that this might slow down a bit. And going into tomorrow, we'll see how this affects the markets. For the triple Q, I think something very similar is developing to SPY. This is also pushing higher. It could be retesting 442. If that breaks, we have an imbalance to fill all the way up to about 444. So it is possible we go a little bit higher. This is 444 to 446 area, approaching the all-time high. But the last time we hit these highs, we did see a big rejection. So we could see the same thing happen later on. So for now, the charts look bullish, but just be mindful of the fact that we're approaching some tight resistance. For Apple's also pushing up. We're going to be looking at resistance at 185 and see if this ends up projecting or not. So be very, very patient for now. But know that we're at resistance at 185. We're pushing a little bit higher thanks to bullish news. So give this some time. For Tesla's still kind of bearish looking. We failed to break past 175. If it breaks 175, look for 176.8, then 178 is resistance. If we lose 172, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 170 and actually filling this gap below. So I personally favor that this might actually dip a little bit more. It is looking a little bit weaker, so we'll give this some time. We're on a downtrend on Tesla as well, so just be very mindful of that. But lastly, I just want to say that for SPY and the others, I do think the market is looking stronger than Tesla. Tesla's kind of weak compared to that, and this could be a little bit more positive for NIO for now. But once the market rejects, that could slow things down. So for NIO, we're still holding up. I think that we might kind of trade sideways right here. The trend is a bit more bearish, but we might just see a lot of sideways range-bound price action. I think NIO is going to retest 5.25, then bounce, retest 5.4, and just continue to trade back and forth. The 20 EMA is kind of like a resistance, so it might come down, rebound, and trade sideways before it starts to sink all the way down to $5. So I do see it dipping a bit, but it might trade sideways first before we get that move. With that being said, I want to thank every single one of you so much for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one tomorrow. Thanks again, and peace out.